start with the moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If staff would please call the roll.
Kimberly Jackson.
Present.
Brian Colton. I'm here. Julius Wiggum.
Present.
Marie Davis. Renee James.
Here.
Michelle Bruce. Edward Canody. Frederick McCoy.
Here.
Corvus Person.
Prior to additions and deletions, Mr. Gagnon, did we receive word from anybody that they may perhaps be coming late or not coming at all?
Good afternoon, Jeff Gagnon, Planning and Zoning Administrator. We did receive notice from Ms. Brooks that she would not be in attendance. We also heard from Ms. Davis that she would not be here as well.
Thank you. So in light of that, do we designate alternates as voting members?
Yeah, that's what Mr. Velasquez was just mentioning to me. So being that we do have two permanent board members absent tonight, I would ask that the board provide voting privileges to our two alternate members.
Seeing no opposition, show that the board approves granting the alternates voting rights. Any additions or deletions, Jeff? Excuse me, Mr. Gagnon.
Yeah, we have one addition. It's email correspondence from Mr. Gowan, and that's provided a hard copy. It's both the black and then red text, and we can discuss that in further detail, but that was an addition. I believe that is the only addition.
And we'll take that up. No general discussion? Jeff? Excuse me, Mr. Gagnon.
Yeah, the board may choose to discuss it further during board comments. Mr. Gowan's here tonight, so I'm sure during public comments for this item, I'm not sure, but he may wish to add additional comments or thoughts. So at any point during the night, we can discuss that.
But is it pertinent to the project?
Yes, sir.
It is?
Directly related to it.
Okay, well, okay, I didn't have a chance to see. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Anything additional for or deletions from the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay. And before we move on to disclosure, I want to ask a question of you, Mr. Gagnon. I know I was out in the month of December, but as you know, there was discussion, at least in January, city council meeting. I think the first city council meeting in January about the organization of the board. Was that brought, or was there a discussion? Because I didn't have the opportunity to go through the minutes, but was that a discussion perhaps in the December meeting about the possible reorganization of the board?
Reorganization was not discussed. However, you do bring up a good point, and I did fail to mention that I did communicate with the city attorney's office, and I was seeking clarification on what's described as a holdover board member. Whereas if the council doesn't appoint an alternate member or reappoint the same member, they would function in what's described as a holdover capacity. So tonight, two of the three members that would be considered holdover are not with us, being Mr. Canudi and Ms. Davis. However, Mr. Wiggum would be able to serve tonight as a full acting member, sitting under holdover capacity.
Okay. Well, I don't want to really dive too much in that. If it's permissible, and this is a question to the board as well as you, I want to see if we can have a discussion about not just Mr. Wiggum, but the board structure following the agenda item, if following new business, if that's okay.
I would suggest probably in general discussions, letter C.
Great. Great. Okay. Yes. If no members opposed, I would like to have just a general discussion and brainstorm on the reorganization of the Planning and Zoning board members. Excuse me, and we'll place that in item C if there's no opposition.
Item C, number 3.
No, sir. Item number 8. Letter C.
Number 8, letter C. We'll number it 3.
We can do number 3, but in no particular order. Definitely item 8, letter C. So no order. If there's no opposition, hearing none, show that adopted. Moving forward, and Mr. Gagnon, if you can reintroduce our city attorney, since this is my first opportunity of actually being at a meeting with him present.
Yeah, sure. My apologies. I probably should have done that either way. Well, actually, I'll let Mr. Shutt introduce himself. You got he's here with us.
Yes, good evening. I think I've been to a couple of these meetings. My name is Brian Shutt. I'm with the law firm of Torsidia, Donlan, Godot, and Ansay, and I've been with them for about a year or so. Prior to that, I was a city attorney in Delray Beach for 5 or 6 years, and prior to that, assistant city attorney in Delray Beach for about 14 years. So got lots of planning and zoning experience, so hopefully I can assist you on this board.
Great, good to have you. If any members want to comment just on Mr. Shutt or offer any reply, now will be the time. Hearing none, moving forward to disclosure by board members. Any members wishing to disclose? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as printed?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Jackson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hamilton. Seeing no opposition, so the agenda is adopted as printed. Moving forward to the approval of the December 11th meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Move that the minutes be accepted with necessary corrections, if there be any.
Move with necessary corrections by Mr. Hamilton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Jackson. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, see those approval of the minutes are, seeing that the minutes are approved. There's no unfinished business. We'll take item number 7, new business, application from Tropical Shipping.
Yes, tonight we have one item under new business, letter A. It's an application from Tropical Shipping USA, LLC, requesting site plan approval to redevelop 5.21 acres of land at 1489 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and 501 Avenue P, located on the south side of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, also known as West 8th Street or State Road 710. That's west of Avenue P, for a 2-story, 3,000 square foot office building, solar panel covered parking area, and an employee walking trail. Additionally, I'd just like to discuss the items that were provided to the board as well. There's hard copy items of the staff report and also some illustrations as well of the project. I'd like to first show there's a color aerial that shows the property in question with a red outline, 11 by 17 feet. Additionally, we have conceptual elevations, color elevations of the new development. On the other side of that sheet, there is basically a description or an existing solar panel facility, and this is what is also being proposed on this site. And then there is a staple package, and this one is only in black and white, not as much fun, but that has just the typical elevations as well as the site plan and landscape plan. So as I go through the staff presentation, I'll speak on each one of these items.
Mr. Gagnon, before you get started, just one question. Are we also having a presentation from the applicant or no? Or is there any...
Well, the applicant is here tonight in two capacities, both their consultants are with us and also representatives from Tropical here. So they're here to answer any questions. There isn't a full-blown presentation. However, most of the information that I have tonight, they can also utilize as well if there's any specific questions from the board.
Sure.
Chair.
Mrs. Jackson, you acknowledge.
Mr. Gagnon, is this west of Old Dixie Highway or east of Old Dixie Highway?
It is west. Let me pull up before we get into the staff report, just so I give an orientation. So where the cursor is, and actually where it says 710 for State Road 710, that's approximately the location of the site. So that's State Road 710 running east and west. To the east of that site is Australian Avenue. To the west is Congress Avenue. Further to the north is Blue Heron Boulevard. And just for a placeholder, we're now in this building at the corner of Old Dixie and Blue Heron Boulevard. So as you zoom in close to the site, you see the proximity to Avenue S, Avenue O, and it's also adjacent to Avenue P. And I can bring up this image after the staff report as well if there's specific questions.
Any other questions before we get started? Mr. Gagnon, you can continue presentation.
So again, tonight, our applicant is Tropical Shipping USA, LLC, and their authorized agent is John E. Schmidt & Associates, Incorporated. The current request is a site plan approval to redevelop 5.21 acres of land in order to build a two-story, 30,000 square foot office building, solar panel covered parking area, which is approximately 50,000 square feet in area, and an employee walking trail as well. This redevelopment proposal will require the demolition of approximately 50,000 square feet of existing warehouse space in order to facilitate redevelopment of this site. In conjunction with this project, the applicant has estimated that the project will create approximately 300 jobs. So the location that was just discussed, it is located and addressed as 1489 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, as well as 501 Avenue P, and that's on the south side of State Road 710, and just west of Avenue P. So in total, the parcels together are approximately 13.36 acres, and included in this redevelopment proposal is 5.21 acres of land. The existing use is warehouse and storage, as well as office space and parking associated with those uses. It's currently zoned IG for General Industrial Zoning District, and the future land use has it designated as industrial. Directly to the north of the facility, land is zoned community facility, where Dan Calloway Park is, and also Palm Beach County Human Services Building. Additionally, General Industrial exists to the north, where FDOT has a stormwater retention area, and it's also a vacant parcel. Directly to the south, it's also zoned General Industrial. That's currently utilized by Southeastern Freight Lines, which is a trucking company. To the east are single-family dwelling districts. It's residential use, all single-family, private structures, and RS8 zoning. To the west is general industrial zoning, which is adjacent to the FDOT railway corridor, and also vacant industrial land adjacent to the west. For the project background, Tropical Shipping has had a long-time business presence within the city. The existing facility along State Road 710 it serves as the primary business hub outside of the Port of Palm Beach. Tropical Shipping began expressing serious interest in redeveloping and modernizing the existing facility in 2014, and after city staff review and applicant responses, the project will clearly be presented to the Planning and Zoning Board. Following Planning and Zoning Board, it would go to the City Council for final review. Additionally, about the building itself and the building design, the applicant desires to seek green building certification from the Florida Green Building Coalition. So what that means is it's a higher threshold of energy conservation, and specific building materials must be used in order to gain that certification. Under staff analysis, again, the proposed use, the applicant is requesting to redevelop the existing location to include a 30,000 square foot office building, solar panel covered parking area, and also an employee walking trail with new landscaping. Zoning regulations, the general industrial IG zoning district permits the requested use with site plan approval by City Council. Comprehensive plan, the proposal is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, including the industrial future land use category. For levels of service, all customary services such as water, sewer, roads, and garbage collection are currently available and functioning on site. For landscaping, the landscape plan was provided with the application for development, and new landscaping will be provided according to the city code requirements. For parking and traffic, the applicant is providing more parking than is required by the city code ordinances. Also, the applicant has received conceptual approval from FDOT to add a traffic signal at Avenue P and State Road 710 in order to facilitate improved vehicular access. They've also received concurrency from Palm Beach County Traffic Division. So staff's recommendation is approval of the Tropical Shipping site plan application. So here's the subject area, and we actually did do a community mail out. It's not required for this type of development. However, we do know that historically the residents have been very involved in the community, and they want to be informed of progress that's being made. Historically, there were some issues with the redevelopment of State Road 710, so we want to make sure that we have open communication with those residences and our city residents and any other stakeholders and property owners in the area. So we did do a mail out, and the total number was approximately 250 individuals received mail outs.
Now, you said, Mr. Gagnon, you said individuals. Is that households or is that?
Yeah, the individual addresses.
Individual addresses. Okay.
Sure.
Just one moment, Mr. Hamilton. I got one more question. And I believe I seen you indicate that they received a conceptual approval from FDOT for a traffic signal at Avenue P. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep, it's in the packet. Because of, I believe it was current standards for distance regulations between stoplights, the applicant met with FDOT to make sure that what they were proposing could be proposed if the developer chose to implement a new stoplight. And what it would do, it would be an on-demand light that would function and coincide with the existing light, which is just to the east. So what they're, and this might not be the best image to discuss this on, but
perhaps if you can take it back a slide or two, it seemed pretty clear and
actually, I have a separate page that has that.
And that's exactly what my question was concerning, because I believe there's a traffic signal at Avenue O already, and then there's 2 Avenue P's. So I wanted to understand when you're talking about the Avenue P on the north side of MLK or on the south side of MLK.
Oh, that's a very good point. The proposed location is the southern Avenue P is shown on this aerial image. So this is a location that FDOT has basically provided approval if the applicant chooses to add an additional stoplight in the future. And what that would do is allow for traffic to take that left turn instead of having to try to cross traffic as they were traveling east.
Sure. I can definitely see that it's necessary, but my concern would have been exactly the distance between Avenue P and Avenue O. But just for clarity, and so I'm understanding correctly, they have a conceptual idea if the developer so chooses to implement the option of having a traffic signal.
Yeah, what happened was they received Palm Beach County traffic concurrency as is. So if they chose to proceed with the project without installing an additional traffic light, they could do so. However, I think logistically the owner is looking to have that light there, probably for various reasons. So if FDOT said, no, we're not going to allow you to install the traffic light because of the separation, it's not far enough apart from an existing light, then they could fall back on the fact that Palm Beach County has basically granted them approval already for the traffic concurrency. So they were kind of just covering all bases and keeping their options open, which is prudent for them to do.
And I understand that, Jeff. It's just, I'm still concerned whether it goes forward. I'm glad that Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is now a 4-lane road. But, just thinking about the peak hours during, I guess, dismissal or arrival for school, we've already abandoned Avenue N on the south side of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And I know I've seen crossing guards and pedestrians that's heavy in Avenue O. And then the morning traffic is just, it's morning traffic, So
Sure.
It's a little concerning. So if we have a on-demand light, I'm just trying to figure out how that would work with the existing structure that we already have there, because I remember when that construction was going on 8th Street, it was mayhem trying to get those kids just through the construction area just to arrive at school, and to think that we're going to have another flashing light. Well, I don't know if it's going to be flashing, but an on-demand light. It's just another maybe couple thousand, not even a couple thousand feet. It's just something that's a little concerning to me. So I would like to kind of know how that's going to work. If maybe the applicant can offer some additional details.
Yeah, I would say that.
And
I guess let me continue with this. And
go ahead.
We can definitely go back and revisit specific questions. I definitely understand your concern as far as adding additional lights and potential congestion issues. But the one thing you did bring up was safety, and I think that having the light there actually is a bigger safety feature than anything else.
Sure.
It's actually controlling the traffic through the area.
Is there any other outlet for them to travel? I guess the only outlet is to go onto Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, because isn't there a canal or something there?
Yeah, they're limited as far as traveling west on Dr. MLK. So this, if I can zoom in, there is an ingress and egress point here. However, there's a median on the roadway, and it allows for westbound traffic to turn in. However, it does not allow for traffic to exit this property and turn left. So any traffic that wants to exit this facility is forced through Avenue P, and currently without having the light, they're forced to take that turn with oncoming traffic.
Is there currently a median strip right there at that cross point?
There is a median strip that goes through. There may have to be some minor redesign for that, but I believe that the cutout for the turn is already in existence. So they would look and make sure that it meets all the code requirements for turning radius.
Sure. Sure. I understand the safety is impact of it, but I think it's a necessity that, I mean, if they're going to be delivering freight and tractor trailers and 18-wheelers, I mean, we ask a lot of businesses sometimes, but I think it's only appropriate that they be permitted to at least have access to travel westbound without having to circle around the entire city just to go back, you know. And
Right.
if they were to hypothetically have to go right and say they wanted to travel to I-95, Interstate 95, then they would have to travel to Australia and then go back south on
They would be forced to
Yeah,
45th Street
or north. So, you know, I think that is definitely something that, you know, is necessary for the sake of the business and their operations.
And the other thing that I hadn't brought up is the fact that this is still a city roadway. So this is functioning for all residents, and additionally, it would function for the business to the south as well, whose
Sure.
business model is freight and trucking. So it would be a benefit to more than just this one property owner. So I would see it as being really a community benefit.
Great, thank you. If nothing else, Mr. Gagnon, I want to allow Mr. Hamilton to opportunity to
Sure.
ask questions. Go ahead, Mr. Hamilton, you acknowledge.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned mail out. I was curious about the radius of that particular mail out.
Yeah, it was a unique mail out, being that it wasn't required, so it wasn't a radius per se. But what we did is we actually hand selected specific neighborhoods and residences, and I think I had a better image up previously. And this shows, for the most part, the area of the mail out. So what we did is we hand selected the residences directly to the east and also the northeast. So we wanted to make sure that these two neighborhoods understood that this was being proposed. We also did the same to the west, and we did a mail out to these properties as well. So it wasn't, in this particular instance, just doing a, let's say a 300-foot or 500-foot buffer. It would have just created a circle around the property like this, and it probably would have left out individuals if we did it that way. So we just hand-selected residents for the mail out.
Thank you.
Any other members?
Chair,
Ms. James, you acknowledge.
do we have a copy of the mail out, Jeff? Is there a copy of it? Just kind of curious of what was stated on the notice.
It's only this one. Yeah.
While they're preparing that, is there any other members that have a question of the presentation?
The actual letter itself. We have some in the audience, so maybe we can share one of those. And what we actually did,
Thank you.
we tried something a little bit different this time. I know that other departments have done kind of more of a postcard mail out. Historically, we've done the stuffing of envelopes, so tried a different technique, and I think it works a little bit better. You can do the black and white subject map that we showed is on the back side, and then the front side is just a public meeting notification.
Well, that's great. I like it, Jeff. Excuse me, Mr. Gagnon. I think it's great, granted, and it goes to show a lot how we're really trying to let our community be involved, especially going outside of what's required, because anybody can do the bare minimum. So kudos to planning and zoning. One of the things I would ask with these notices is that sometimes, I know these agenda packets are massive sometimes, and my aunt told me about the proposed site plan application for a nursing facility that was coming into, or assisted living facility that was coming into our community 2 weeks before I even got an agenda packet. So, if we can also as members can stay on top of something that might be coming, we're in February, in April, it'll be good too. So we can kind of not just have maybe a week or so to kind of dive into it, but just having a general idea, maybe we want to visit the site or just try to get a little background on it, I think that would probably, that's always helpful.
Yeah, I'd say that from a staff perspective, we try to provide the information as early as possible, and we always make the point to provide it at least a week in advance. But lots of times the way that the items are scheduled or the way that the packets are compiled, sometimes it's more difficult to ensure that the meeting is definitely going to happen. So whenever we have the opportunity to provide early notice, we definitely try to. But on the counter to that, I guess, is we don't want to provide notification if the meeting isn't going to happen.
If it's withdrawal, right?
Exactly. So we want to be certain that it's happening because we want to respect everyone's time. But
sure,
whenever we have the opportunity, we'll definitely send out notification earlier.
Okay. And have we conceptually identified a timeline on when, I guess, not necessarily construction, but when when construction is going to start?
I guess I'll defer that question to the applicant. However, that's going to be driven by action by the Planning and Zoning Board and also the City Council. It's my understanding that they're ready to pursue development very soon. So, again, I'll defer that 100% answer to the applicant, but I believe they're ready to start working.
Any other members wishing to question Mr. Gagnon on the presentation? Hearing none, if the applicant wants to offer, he's more than welcome.
Yes, Honorable Chair and members of the Planning Board. My name is Rick Rekenis, representing Tropical Shipping on behalf of John Schmidt this evening. And I'd like to thank Mr. Gagnon for the excellent presentation that staff has made to you. Basically, in recap, Kyle Duncan is here today with Simmons and White. He will address, and I'll hold the plan, and he'll talk about that light, that traffic light, and how it'll work, and how it's actually synced with the light at Avenue O, which will stay. So that basically, only when the light at Avenue O goes red would that one go red if somebody's waiting to turn left. And so they basically act as one traffic light because they're so close together, and then people can queue out. But he'll I think explain it to you and give you a good level of comfort on that proposal. But basically, what Tropical Shipping is looking to do is build their corporate headquarters here at this property, 30,000 square foot leads level of design building. Overall redevelopment, the existing 50,000 square foot warehouse that's been vacant will be taken down and probably recycled at some point somewhere else by the contractor. It will be replaced with a parking lot for 300 to 350 cars with solar covered parking so that people have covered parking. Reconfiguration of the parking area. We're upgrading the landscaping along MLK and Avenue P. The project meets all traffic performance standards, and this also allows us to reconfigure the truck flow that works a lot better for not only Tropical but Riviera Beach. A lot of problems historically have been for the trucks queuing in to try to get into the property or queuing up on MLK. This allows them a much more efficient queuing coming in off Avenue P and a good stacking inside the property so that there's no traffic impacts to surrounding trips and cars on the streets. Basically, there were a couple of other comments that I think came to you in the email that we had talked to Mr. Gagnon about, and would like to volunteer that if you want, we're happy to go ahead and address some of those conditions or requirements for conditions. The construction is 30 days before construction. There will be a big, one of those big sort of fences put up to sort of protect the area and signs posted. So I think everybody will see that construction will be starting in about 30 days. And then also I know there were some experiences in the neighborhood about potential damage to houses from the vibratory rollers that DOT was using on MLK when they were doing that road improvement. We won't be using any vibratory rollers on this project. This is basically taking down the existing building. The demolition, it's not going to be a Las Vegas style hotel implosion. This is going to be this is a good building, it will be, taken down carefully. And then after that, we're basically building parking and adding a third right turn lane dedicated on Avenue P. So what I'd like to do is ask Kyle to come forward, Kyle Duncan. I will get the graphic, and he can explain to you how those traffic lights will be synchronized.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kyle Duncan for the record in Simmons and White. What we did was, while we were in the entitlement process with the city, we felt like it would be beneficial to take a proactive approach and have some dialogue with the DOT to see if we could improve access and maneuverability for the trucks, for the future employees along Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. The DOT was receptive. However, they said you're not making any median modifications to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard whatsoever. The one thing they did allow us was to put in a signal. And I don't think, what we refer to it as a partial signal, because if you notice at Avenue P, you cannot make a westbound left to head south on Avenue P. The only movement you can make is to head north, make a left, and head west on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. So what the DOT offered up, and again, it's at the developer's discretion if they decide to move forward with it, it wasn't a capacity issue, it was just an operational issue, is to put in a partial signal. And this signal would be tied into the existing signal at Avenue O. And it would operate, and like Rick said, in a coordinated effort. It wouldn't even have its own controller cabinet. So when the signal at Avenue O goes red on a regular basis, as it does today, and if there is a demand at Avenue P for a car wanting, again, to go north and head west, then both signals would go red, and they would get a green arrow to head west on MLK. Right now, what's happening is the signal at Avenue O creates a gap for westbound traffic, so the folks leaving Avenue P can head west. But it does not create a gap for eastbound traffic, and what this partial signal essentially does is it creates gaps in both directions. So that's the basis of the signal, but it would be coordinated with the existing signal at Avenue P.
So the important thing, as you mentioned, you were talking about the school kids' peak hour drop-offs and everything. They will never notice any difference because this won't impact anything that happens to the Avenue O signal. That'll still operate exactly as it always has. The only difference here is when that thing is red on MLK, then if there's a demand for people to come out here and turn left, if they're stacked up, then that thing will go red and they'll be able to get out. That's the only different thing that would happen. But otherwise, if that Avenue O signal is green on MLK, everything is green. So there won't be any impact at all. If y'all have any other questions, we're happy to answer them.
I just have one. So the turn radius from Avenue P onto MLK westbound, is that large enough to accommodate a tractor trailer? Because
Yes, sir.
It's doing it today.
Yes. Southeast comes out of there already today with all of their rigs.
And can travel westbound?
Yes.
Okay. It just looking from here looks pretty narrow. Okay. All right. And if you can remind us of your name, I heard Rick and.
Okay. Rick, and the last name is Rickennis, and this is Kyle Duncan.
Kyle. Okay, Rick and Kyle. Mr. Colton, you acknowledge.
Just one question. It states in there an estimated creation of 300 jobs, and it looks like some relocation of jobs. With the relocation of people coming in, how many remained in jobs locally or will be created when this facility opens?
It's about 250 existing with the potential of 50 new hires.
Yeah, so 250 existing in the area and 50 new coming in here, 50 new hires.
So basically estimated 50 new hires
In addition to the
in
250
addition to the relocation.
Yes.
Mr. Wiggum?
One question.
Mr. Wiggum, yes.
I would like to know whether these trucks will be coming in 24/7 or they just coming in at a certain time.
I believe their hours of operation are, I think, they open in the morning. They open the gates in the morning and they close them by about 4 o'clock. They're pretty well closed. So, but I think these guys run the operations. They can answer that.
Thanks, Director.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, fellow board members. My name is Mark Chapman. I'm the Vice President of Business Operations for Tropical Shipping. I've been working here in the city of Riviera Beach for 25 years with Tropical. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. What we're doing here with this project is essentially constructing an office complex that doesn't exist today. The additional jobs and some of the traffic discussion that we had earlier really pertains to office workers and leaving around the rush hour of 5 o'clock. We do operate a receiving station there, and we do hope that business grows over time, but there'll be no immediate impact to tractor-trailer rigs in this area as a result of this project.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
From the size of the way the lot is going to be now, in some sections you're going to have a fence around there. Are you going to have any security lights anywhere there? Because I noticed you said that there will be a walking trail for the employees and so forth like that. But, there's a neighborhood on one side there, and then there's the buildings in there. Are you going to have security lights out there or anything?
Yes, sir. We have a full system of security today, which includes special lighting as well as complete video camera surveillance.
Thank you. I have no question.
Mrs. Jackson, you're acknowledged.
Thank you, Chair. I know previously there were some concerns concerning construction noise when they were developing MLK. And my question to you is there going to be a certain time limit that construction stops, or is construction going to be going on all night? And how is that going to affect those homes that are directly to the east of the construction site?
If you were going to ask me about shipping, I'd be very comfortable in answering that. On this one, I'm going to have to punt.
Yeah, that's a very good question. The city currently has an ordinance that governs construction times and noise associated with it. So only under an extreme situation would the city permit 24-hour construction that would be probably associated with a natural disaster or an emergency event. So any typical construction, you're actually not allowed to construct or build on Sunday whatsoever. And then it's a typical, I can't remember the exact time frame, but I believe it's like a 7 to 6 or 7 to 5 time frame Monday through Saturday for construction.
Thank you.
Mr. Hamilton, you're acknowledged.
Thank you, Chair. Included in the packet was north and south elevations. I did not see the east or west. Maybe I'm overlooking it.
Yeah, I believe there were 2 per sheet. And Mr. Hamilton, are you referring to the black and white elevations or the color elevation?
Black and white.
Okay. Yeah, so on the first sheet, which is labeled A 2.0,
Correct.
the elevation above is small print, but it's the east elevation, and below it, that's the north elevation. And then on the second sheet, which is labeled A 2.1, the top diagram is the west elevation, and below that's the south elevation.
Thank you.
Question for Mr. Chapman. Mr. Chapman, currently, where is your headquarters at? Is that the building being utilized at the port?
Yes, it is. It's the 5-story marine office building that's located within the port property.
Okay. And the whole entire operation will be leaving from there and then going over to?
Well, not the whole entire operation because we can't take the port with us.
Well, it's at least.
But we will be moving all of our office personnel. Yes.
Okay. Will you need TWIC badges to get in over at the new site?
No, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you. Any other members choosing to question the applicants? Hearing none, I think we're going to go to board comments. And if you guys would like, I would want to see if one of the public members or individuals from the public may ask a question, not directly, if you could address those concerns in a follow-up.
Yes, sir. And before I leave, I'd just like to say thanks to the staff for really a very effective job in moving our application along. And they came forward with many solid suggestions to make our facility even better than we had planned, and that's great, appreciated. And I thank you for your time and attention, and we look forward to moving our operation here for many, many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as I may, a point of clarification, Mr. Velasquez was able to pull up the city's ordinance, and the time frame for construction is actually 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and no construction on Sunday.
Any other comments comments of the presentation? Hearing none, we're going to move over to public comments. Mr. James Gallen.
Good evening, board. My name is James Gallen, and I reside at 1325 West 7th Street. And I'm in that area where they're going to be doing the construction of this new building. Most of my questions have been answered, thanks to Jeff. The only other thing I have to say is that the notification that they didn't have to do, but they did, we all just received them today. So, that wasn't a good thing, but he tried. That's something I must commend him on. So, but my main concern is still, I hope that they would do some type of monitoring, even though, it's not going to be a heavy demolition part of this construction, but I still would like to see some type of monitoring for vibration.
Thank you, Mr. Gallen. Perhaps it might have gotten lost in the mail. Thanks. Ms. Dolores Brown.
Good evening. My name is Dolores Brown. I reside at 1425 West 7th Street. I am 2 houses just east of the canal along Avenue P. And during the construction of MLK Boulevard, we suffered tremendously from the noise. I asked back then at several meetings if we could get a wall along Avenue P because of the constant trucks in and out day and night. And I was told no. I'm asking again if we can get a wall along Avenue P for the noise of the trucks. That's my only concern. Thank you.
Ms. Brown, just one question. Your inquiry about the wall, would that have been on the east side or the west side of that canal or that drainage ditch?
It's going to be on the west side.
On the west side?
Just the canal is adjacent to, I don't know. The canal is adjacent to 7th Street. My street dead ends at the canal. So we will need a wall. I don't know if you will put it on the east side of the canal or the west side. I don't care. I just want a wall.
Okay. I was just curious. I don't think that's exactly pertinent to their project. I think city staff would more or less be the person that you would want to speak to about it. But I think it's certainly been noted on the record, and I would ask that you perhaps get this gentleman's information since he's a part of community development and bring it up there. But at least as far as the application for the special exception application for the applicant, I'm not sure if that's even in the purview of asking a business to do something like that.
Well, I was under the understanding that we were getting a wall on 8th Street.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just wanted to continue around the Avenue B.
Sure. And at best, at least, Mr. Gagnon, he's not, I don't know if he would be able to kind of give you the details of the wall, but he could probably at least get you, in contact with the appropriate people. But as far as the application for a special exception, everything that's occurring on the west side, just the construction of the actual facility per se is, I don't think it's exactly pertinent to the wall that you're indicating. So certainly, I'm sure Mr. Gagnon wouldn't mind looking into it for you, but at least for the applicants, I'm not sure if that's something Tropical would have, would be, kind of on the hook for. So, I mean, it's been noted, and I'm sure he was looking into it for you.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Mary Butler.
Good evening. Mary Butler, 1328 West 7th Street. I am being affected by the MLK improvement. So I just want to state my concerns here about the light and making sure that you say it's going to be activated by the public people. I'm okay with that. All right, and then the wall, you all say you might put a wall, you might put bushes. You understand? Put a wall. And I think you are doing a really good job with the communication. We only got it today, it didn't get lost in the mail.
Didn't get lost in
Miss Mary, perhaps it was a natural disaster or something that
I'm
helped.
having one. Let me come back. I'm trying to tell you. So my natural disaster is this movement of the earth from the MLK still happening at my house. I come and find more cracks every day.
Okay, well,
I know.
No, let me ask you this. So, the notice that you received today, did it indicate a number where you can contact the city?
Well, since I work like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., I kind of got off a little early, saw the number when I came.
Sure.
So
Well,
I got the phone number thing.
a lot of times, and this is just a suggestion, an observation that I've noticed more or less, actually more so at the city council meetings, a lot of individuals, they want to take the time to come to the podium and make their voices heard, which is absolutely perfect. I think that is your civic duty to exercise freedom of speech. But it's really simple to pick up the phone and say, I'm a resident and I have concerns about this. In my experience, this is why I in fact wanted to be a part of the board, is that these people have to listen to us. They don't have to agree with us, but they have to listen. So I would certainly welcome the opportunity that you reach out to staff and say, hey, can somebody give me some information about a project that might be coming over here on the other side of the wall, or I'm having issues with this. I mean, I think I have a contact in almost every city department there is. So if you can't get anybody, I'll give you my cell number, and then I'll make
7
sure.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Normally people are gone. I work 7 a.m.
Well, if you don't call me after 7 p.m., I can handle that. But no, listen, 827-0365. I mean, staff is always welcoming to at least hear you out. I just don't want us to start in the pattern of what I see at city council meetings, that this is usually the venue or the avenue to address your concerns, when I know that staff will certainly open up their door to you and at least hear you. And I have the opportunity of working for a legislator, so I know that I can make contact with some folks over at the Department of Transportation, and we can at least have the inquiry heard at the right level. Whether or not they're going to put a wall up there, I can't say that either way, but at least we can have the conversation started.
Having a conversation with these over here, and they was trying to make up their mind they're going to put some.
And you want the wall.
She got the wall. I'm supporting her. And y'all have choices. You want the bush or you want the... All right.
Ms. Butler, he'll share my cell phone number with you, so if you need some help, I'll certainly do that for you. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Have a nice evening.
Miss Mary Brown.
well slow now. I had some extensive back surgery done, okay? So I'm recuperating, okay? Good evening.
Good evening.
Mary Graham, 1564 West 9th Street. I too voiced this concern about the notification. It's okay for the city as a board to do whatever projects, but out of consideration toward the residents that lives around in that neighborhood, anything that comes in, we should get notification. It should not be, well, you know, it's not necessary. Okay. In other neighborhoods always have notifications. We shouldn't be divisive. Okay. It's coming in, so let the neighbors know. Okay. So whether or not they come here as we have done, or whether or not, you know, they do not. But at least that's respect within the community, and especially where we live at. My concern too is the noise level. We have already been through that with the MLK project. And the decibel noise practically just disrupted our homes. Some of us are in litigation now to restore our homes. So I heard some comments about, you know, all of that noise and stuff. You know, it will not be that. Make sure. I'm asking you all to make sure. Stay on guard. Stay on guard. If this project comes in, stay on guard. Monday through Saturdays, like I say, we got enough traffic noise and stuff coming in MLK as it is. If it's on Saturday, why work a whole day? Why work a whole day there? You still impacting us with all the noise and stuff that will be existing within this project here. So I ask you all to take another look at that on Saturdays. So you going Monday through Friday from what time? From 8 to 5? Answer me, somebody, from 8 to 5? Is it from 8 to 5?
7 to 8.
7 to 8 at night?
That's the noise ordinance.
Yeah, for the construction, 7 to 8 at night?
For construction of the development, it would be 7 in the morning to 8 at night.
Okay, from 7 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. And plus on Saturdays too. So I ask you all to take a look at Saturday. Take a look at Saturday. Take a look at Saturday. Go back and take a look at Saturday. We got enough. You know, our nerves are shot. Our homes are already disarrayed from everything else that is going on in over there. So I ask you all to take a back look at on a Saturday there. The traffic light. Yes. If more traffic will be incorporated with these employees or anything else that you may have over there, so take in consideration of a traffic light. Take consideration of a traffic light. I'm asking you all to do that too, because I'm an advocate, especially for my children. Those schools are on that corridor too. And you want to start 7, 8 a.m. in the morning. So I ask you all to be considerate too. We're not trying to deny you all, but we would like things that are in place also to make this conducive so our neighborhood can work and then strive. I don't know, but I'm going to say this too. Those freight cars that's you all are tropical, and those freight trailers belong to you all, right? When a hurricane comes, because that has been one of our main concerns too. You keep stacking those freight trains up there. A massive tornado or hurricane comes through here. Who is going to hit? It's going to decimate we as residents over in that area and perhaps throw them all out. So I ask you all to take another look at that too. The way that those freight trains are stacked there. We as residents, we was going to come to the chambers and address that also. So this is the appropriate time, you know, to address that. So those are my concerns, and make sure that it's going to be 300 employees. Make sure it's going to be 300 employees. And if not, make sure that some of the city residents, all of those who may be qualified to get those jobs. So I ask that you all do that too, because Ms. Graham don't stay on job. I'm the watchman. I live over in that neighborhood there, and we have had to battle for things that are conducive for our neighborhood. I'm not paralyzed. I'm healing, okay? So, thank you all. Happy New Year to the board, okay? So take those comments into consideration and work on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I just want to take a unique opportunity to allow follow-up questions or concerns related to the public comments. If there aren't any, I want to give the applicant and perhaps even the developer an opportunity to offer, I want to say, for lack of better words, a rebuttal or counter suggestions.
If I may, Chair, I would like to provide a few responses. I believe I did a pretty comprehensive job of writing down the questions. Let's see. So as far as the wall or fence on Avenue P, what's currently being proposed is a landscape buffer and fencing. The State Road 710 project that is funded by the state, submitted by FDOT. So as far as continuing that wall south down Avenue P, at least on the east side of Avenue P, or even on the west side, if it was on city property, that would be a funding issue for the city that would have to be vetted by the powers that be. And walls are expensive, for sure. However, comments are important, and we can work through that. So additionally, I guess to address Ms. Bram's comments in regards to the construction hours, it's basically a law. It's an ordinance that the city has, and that's been on the books for a number of years, I believe. So that's been pretty consistent. And what that does, it allows the contractor to mobilize on site and finish the job quickly. So that way it's not an extended period of construction time. Of course, there's no construction that occurs on Sundays, so that's the break in construction. And also, we've definitely heard the concerns in regards to vibrations and potentially monitoring vibrations. Also, the concern about just general public notification when demolition is going to occur and when construction is poised to occur as well. So, the notification aspect, again, we're improving on that, and we hope to continue to improve that aspect. But that's something that we can easily do just to make sure everyone is informed of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Gagnon. Is the applicant or the developer interested in offering any counter suggestions or counter comments?
Good evening, John Schmidt, agent for the applicant. To address the neighborhood concerns, we're all right. Monitoring the vibrations is pretty standard practice, so we don't have a problem with continued monitoring on that. We did explain that no vibrating compaction is going to be done on here, and the demolition is going to be done, with procedures taking this down piece by piece. So we don't have a problem monitoring that. In terms of the hours of operation, Saturday, we certainly can reduce it to 4 o'clock on Saturday. It's not, this project isn't any under time constraints. I really don't see Hedrick Brothers even working on Saturday, but if you'd like to place a condition on there, we're amenable to 4 o'clock. And then in terms of the stacking of the containers, most of the stuff is at this property is overland. Every once in a while they do have to stack just to due to size of the property. But in any storm event, they're required to stack down and bring all the containers down. So that doesn't happen during a storm event. Again, we're happy to accept a condition of approval if the board sees fit.
Well, that's a great suggestion. John Smith, you're the agent for the applicant.
Yes.
Does that mean you're the project manager or the
Yes,
construction manager?
Sorry, I was at Atlantis tonight, so I wasn't here earlier in the evening.
So just over the entire project, not necessarily the construction part.
Just actually, we have been running it through what we would call the entitlement process. So getting the civil engineers, traffic engineers, as well as the builder involved.
Sure. Okay. Well, members, I certainly like that Mr. Smith has proposed that this is only for Saturday, correct?
That's correct.
He has to propose that as a condition of approval, they're willing to offer in that all construction will end by 4 o'clock on Saturday. So if a member of the board so chooses, they can make a motion and choose to include that condition. Are there any other comments from members? No comments. This is our last opportunity to make comments before we call a vote.
Chair, we're calling the vote as is, or you're asking for someone to make a motion to accept it as he stated to stop construction by 4 o'clock?
I'm not asking you to, but the floor is open if you so chooses. Mr. Schmidt proposed that they're willing to stop the construction by 4. So if you would like, you can certainly make the motion to include that in there. If not, you don't have to. So,
well, let me ask Mr. Gagnon, is it necessary? Do we need to make a motion?
My suggestion would be, for clarity, that within the motion itself, that the board member specifically states any conditions that they wish to add to the motion. That way, all other board members would have full understanding of what those conditions may be if the board member chooses to require an additional condition. So if you did choose to move forward and say approval of the project with the condition that construction on Saturday can only go till 4 p.m., you'd make the motion and state it in that manner.
Additional question, Jackson,
Go ahead, Mr. Hamilton. You have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Also, in the past, I think you've indicated that the department may have requested certain criteria that would be, how can I say, amicable to the community. And I was thinking that maybe, and I don't know if you knew of the concerns as far as the noise level of the trucks and its impact, the noise to the residents in that immediate area. And sometimes company, for tax purposes or otherwise, like to make donations. In this case, it would be to the city to place a barrier and to basically for goodwill purposes. And I don't know if that was discussed with Tropical or not.
I'm not aware of that suggestion occurring. There's nothing that prohibits asking the question, but again, there's nothing that requires a developer to do so.
And if I can ask, and you're certainly in line to ask any question you want, Mr. Hamilton. I think that's something that should perhaps go on in the negotiation phase, because I don't want it to ever get the impression or the perception of any impropriety such as a quid pro quo. So I mean, I know where you're going at, but to make it almost like a condition that the city receives a wall or a pavement, it just, I would much rather them develop the project. I think it's absolutely independent of those residential communities. It may have some ancillary effect, but to require a developer to do a wall, I don't want to even start that line. So, but you're welcome to ask whatever question you will. But it's just, I think it's improper to use this venue when we're just actually examining the land use to see if it's compatible with our existing regulations to propose a question such as you were going down that line.
I understand your comment, and I was not indicating to place it as a requirement.
Okay.
I'm saying that certain companies make various donations to communities for lack of a better term, public trust. And this is something that maybe Tropical was not aware of. I do not know if they were aware of noise level, and then I can relate to the residents and the noise level. Well, I understand, and for the residents, I'm on their side.
Thank you. Any other members choosing that? Mr. Whipham.
My concern is, I understand that people are concerned about the noise level. I don't know how long it's going to take to complete this project, but if they got a 6-day plan right now, the quicker they get through with this, the better off you'll be. That's my thinking. If they want to work 6 days, let them do it. That means they get through faster. Because if they delay Saturday at some hour, that means it's going to be longer with more noise. So you think about that. Do you want to hurry up and get through, or you want to continue on at a later date? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other members?
Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
If there's not any other comments? Hearing no other comments, Ms. Jackson, you're recognized to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the application from Tropical Shipping USA LLC requesting site plan approval to redevelop 5.21 acres of land at 1489 Martin Luther King Drive and 501 Avenue P, located on the south side of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, aka West 8th Street, west of Avenue P, for a 2-story, 30,000 square foot office building, solar panel covered parking area, and an employee walking trail. In addition, that we accept the proposal from Tropical Shipping to end construction at 4:00 p.m. on Saturdays.
It's been moved with conditions?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any other comments? Hearing none, staff, you recognize to call the roll.
Arthur Hamilton,
Yes.
Kimberly Jackson,
Yes.
Brian Colton,
Yes.
Julius Wiggum,
Yes.
Renee James,
Yes.
Treasurer McCoy.
Yes.
Unanimous voting, motion approved.
Thank you, members. Moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Take care.
Moving forward to general discussion. I don't see that we have any public comments for public comments. Actually, I do have one. Okay. Miss Mary Butler, is this also for general public comments as well? You done? Okay, great. All right. I got a couple questions. Mr. Gagnon.
Yes, sir.
I'll delay my question. You want to explain the correspondence?
Oh, well, the only correspondence we received was the email that was mentioned previously, and that was in regards to the application from Tropical Shipping.
Okay.
I guess it was information from a previous meeting that was handed out by, I believe, a member of the public to the board.
Okay.
I'd have to review it one more time, but I can speak to you after.
Okay. Well, do we need to go through and I think at least do we need to actually go through the correspondence? Do we need to read it? Does it need to be read into the record?
No, the resident was here tonight to seem to provide that a lot of the comments were satisfied. It was really for just informational purposes for the board, so that way it could act as a kind of a brainstorming mechanism.
Okay, great. So that doesn't need to be satisfied. If we can move forward to planning and zoning comments, and I would like to start first. I have a few questions. Number one, I seen the minutes and it did say for the court reporter. So is it now that we use a court reporter for all of the planning and zoning meetings?
Yes, our standard operating procedure moving forward will be to have a third-party court reporter take verbatim minutes for the meeting.
Okay, great. I think it's, let me go down my laundry list here. Provided that there were no substantial or significant changes to the project that we just approved, do we have a timeline on when it may go to council, maybe the next meeting or perhaps 2 meetings?
Look at my calendar.
And also, will staff do what they did and send out notice again, even though it's not required for the public meeting?
Yeah, we can send out an additional notification for the city council meeting. Looking at my calendar now, it would likely be in March or potentially early April, depending on the council schedule.
Okay. And I know we were able to have this given to us, I think, maybe in November or perhaps even in October, that we had an update of the current projects. Can we do that in perhaps quarterly? Sure. Once every 3 months, so we can kind of keep, an idea of what may be coming down the pipe.
Yeah, I'll bring a revised list to the next meeting.
Okay. Any other members wishing to comment on any item or any concern? Mr. Colton, you're recognized.
Could we receive an email like last year, the dates where I can print out as far as a potential meeting for the rest of the year? I usually stick it up on my wall.
Yeah, I think we updated the schedule. It may have just been emailed, but staff can definitely just print copies.
No, just send it to me on email. I can print it out. I don't remember seeing one where I can print.
I believe we got
have one.
Didn't we get it?
Maybe I think Mr. Sproutley had extra copies.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gagnon, I had another concern about the agenda. I had the toughest time trying to print this agenda because of these, just because of the size of these, and there's different functions and different readers. I just had so much trouble trying to figure it out, so I only was able to print half of the agenda at home. Is it possible, now if it's a lot of work that I want you guys to go through, but is it possible to do these large 11 by 17 on a totally different file as opposed to the agenda? Because, I tried for about 40 minutes to just print one packet and reduce it all to 8.5 by 11, but neither one of the functions in my print dialog would allow me to do that. So just for simplicity purposes, and on that same note, the court reporting is great, but it's the very second page of the packet, and can that be provided separate of the actual agenda and the backup? Because it's like you got so much information into one document, it's kind of difficult to navigate. And thankfully, if it's done in PDF, you do have the option to do a search for certain terms, but I just kind of want to see, and I know it may not be possible, but if we can just explore the idea, because sometimes it's just quite tough to figure out how do I print an 88-page document when I don't necessarily need to have 30 pages of minutes that are immaterial in the actual project. So that's just an idea, something maybe you have an opportunity to look at. Any other members while I go down my laundry list here?
Chair.
Mrs. James.
I'm just thinking about when the board, when the city council sees this particular application packet, that any notifications that have went out to the residents are included with that package? Because my concern is if they see the exact same thing that we see from the board, and it's generally how it's transmitted. Whatever you present to P&Z, you also present to the city council. Is that correct?
For the most part.
Or do they get more information than we do?
I was actually going to say the opposite, where there's a lot of supplemental information that's provided in the Planning and Zoning Board meeting that may not make it into the city council packet, being that it was duplicative or there's for the most part it's close, truncated, so it's a smaller package, but staff has been trying to almost provide an identical packet.
Okay, so it may be identical, but definitely with the meat and potatoes of the project, like summarization or summary. But I think they should see that the notification that goes out to the residents. So I would request that that's included, of course, along with our recommendation.
Mr. Hamilton, you're
Thank you,
recognized.
On that same note, I was curious if council received or had the opportunity to receive packet at the same time we received it for our P&Z meeting.
I would say yes, and we also post it online, so it's accessible by anyone that wants to access it.
Thank you.
One last comment before we move forward to the next item. I'm liking what I'm seeing with the board and how diligent staff is working to open up the waves of communication. Specifically, it's good to see that when you look at a project that has been submitted, or I should say an application that's been submitted, the various departments may notate, this is concerning, or this is a recommendation that we would like to change, and then the applicant goes back and makes those changes, and then we get a final synopsis that kind of indicates that it went back through those departments, and that department no longer has a comment. So great job on that. I think that's very important. That provides me a little assurance that we were able to hash out those whatever remaining concerns that was existing with the application. So thank you for that. I believe that's it for my public comments. If there aren't any, Mr. Wiggum, you recognize.
Yes, looking at the dates for the rest of the year, I'm really hoping that businesses start coming into Riviera because we need more. As I've been saying for the past several years, I want to see Broadway redeveloped. And I hope some of these businesses are paying attention as to what's going on in Riviera Beach so they can move in. The other day I went on Broadway to Dairy Queen to get me a milkshake. Don't y'all tell my doctor now. I went to get me a milkshake, which I've been getting from that Dairy Queen since my kids were little. And I almost cried because that Dairy Queen been there for years. I hope it's not closing down. I hope it's opening back up. I would like to see a movie on a theater on Broadway. I would like to see some restaurants on Broadway because we've seen the citizens get tired of cooking meals all the time. And we have a beautiful city, and we have one of the best mottos that you can think of that you read up there about where the city is. We, as members of the Planning and Zoning Board, as you ride around the city, look over my district, your district, and let's start having some workshops on some of these days that we don't have, regular meetings, so that we among ourselves can say, look, this redevelopment in such a section, let's work with the city council to change the zoning on it so this can come in. That's what we did on Congress when all those businesses were up and down Congress from Military Trail down, further down to Blue Heron. We got a development of homes there and a beautiful site over there. But I am sick and tired of riding in my district and seeing all these boarded up houses. Where are our young people going? Let's bring them back to Riviera Beach. So we need to have some workshops so we can talk about this and make some suggestions to our administrators, for the planning zoning administrators, so they could bring it to CRA, the city council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other members choosing to comment? Before we move forward, I would ask, well, I guess it's a segue. It's kind of relating to both, but what I asked for in addition, I just so happened to glance at the meeting, the city council meeting in the month of January, the agenda, and found out that Mr. Canuti, Ms. Davis, and Mr. Wiggum were all up for reappointment. And I'm not sure how this works, and this is what's really bothering me about the entire situation. I think we have a really solid board, and I think we may disagree, and I think that's what makes for a spirited discussion. But it's never personal for me, and I respect everybody just the same. And I enjoy being a part of this board. I've since taken a shift in my position at my professional job, and I've decided not to travel as much. But before I did that, I used to be in Tallahassee, and I would come all the way back down to West Palm Beach just so I can make my meetings. So it was more of a commitment in what I was doing. It's because I like what I'm doing. And, I was really bothered that we all have a life, but sometimes things come up and you may not be able to go attend the meeting. It may not happen where you can actually call someone an hour before the meeting and, that kind of thing. I would never bring it up that somebody missed the meeting or you're responsible for not telling, but, there's rules and regulations, and I don't think there's ever been a posture of any chair that I know of or staff to make question about a member not reporting their absences or saying that they won't be able to attend. With that in mind, I was a little bothered the way the discussion went when there was Mr. Wiggum and the two members from District 4, when their term ended. Here we are, volunteers of a public board, and you see the participation we got. I mean, there's standing room only. Nobody can even get in this building right now. But I've seen over 8 or 9 applications for people that want to be on the board, but there's no participation when it comes to knowing about issues related to tropical or whatever other business or whatever other site plan application that we have to take on. And interesting enough, and this is the question that I had, how is it that in the month of January, or even in the month of December, when their terms ended, we had already had applications in? Because it didn't make sense that if there were no vacancies, how come we have applications? And I was sitting there thinking to myself, this is a problem. Why does somebody or some department or some council member decides that they want to now change to reorganize the planning and zoning board because District 1 has 7 members? And I think that's great for District 1. In fact, everybody up here is District 1. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're missing Ms. Brooks. So I like to see the representation from District 1. But the problem was, one of the concerns that I heard was that there's not representation from District 3 or District 4. And the council members from those districts clearly asserted that they wanted representation. And I'll tell you, some of these same council members appointed us. Some of these same council members made the motion to appoint us. But, it is what it is. But if you don't have people that's going to apply and be applicants, do we now hold up the business of the city? Do we now tell 7-Eleven, wait a minute, we don't have a quorum. Wait a minute, we don't have enough members from District 3, so we're not going to listen to your item. The Planning and Zoning Board is sanctioned, it's mandated, it's required by Florida statutes. So we have an obligation to be a part of this city, whether or not we're from District 1, District 2, District 3, or District 4. So I thought it was disingenuous that City Council will really engage in a conversation to suggest that they were going to attrition members off of the board. And if you don't understand what that means, I'll kind of clarify a little bit. I think I'm next on the board. Actually, Mr. Wiggum and the other two members from District 4. Is it District 4?
I'm in District 1.
Well, Mr. Wiggum, Mrs. Davis,
In District 1.
and Mr. Canuti term had expired. And now the consensus or the direction that they gave to staff was to develop a plan to attrition the members off of the board. So every city council member will have at least 2 picks. So with that in mind, now I was looking at the term list. Do we have one of those lists available? Or could you perhaps pull it up on the internet that shows when a member's term expires? But the question that I really bothered me was, how could this possibly work? And I know Ms. James, I believe, was the last person to be reappointed, which in a sense would make her term end in 2017. She would be the furthest person to come up for reappointment. So under this idea that City Council has, with no discussion of the Planning and Zoning Board, no input of the Planning and Zoning Board, basically, thank you for your service, goodbye Mr. Hamilton, goodbye Ms. Jackson, goodbye Mr. McCoy, goodbye Mr. Colton, and goodbye Mr. Wiggum. And I couldn't figure it out. How do we advertise a job, a volunteer position, when there's not even a vacancy? That only leads to one thing. Somebody was operating outside of the sunshine. And then when you go through these applications, this is what really started to irritate me. I studied accounting, and I guess you could probably say I'm a little bit of a forensic accountant. But when I was looking at some of the dates on the application, how is it that 2 of these applicants submitted their application on the same day in October? Right? Also, if you look at, and you guys should go back and look at the January meeting, but how is it that these 2 applicants kind of used the same format and text of the letter? They didn't submit applications like we all did, but ironically, their application was date stamped the same exact date. Remind you, there's no vacancy, so how would they even know to apply? So that's a problem for me. And if you want to be quite frank, it's a conspiracy. And I just think that deserves some sort of inclusion of the existing members on the Planning and Zoning Board to say, hey, what do you guys think? No, it doesn't. It just says, thank you for your service. Step out of the way. We were good for when we went through the redevelopment of the marina. We were good for when we hashed out all of these various projects with the large family daycares and the language related to the sign ordinances and a number of different things that we've worked on, at least in the past almost 3 years that I've been a part of the board. But now we're no good now because we want to start a new path. We want to start a new program. Well, I spoke out against it at the Planning and Zoning, at the City Council meeting in January, and I'll continue to speak out on it. But just according to what we see, Ms. James is probably the furthest out, and I believe I'm the next up in the month of April. And I want this to be a thoughtful discussion. I want everybody to kind of share their opinions on it, but I want to know what's going to happen to Project McCoy. Councilman Guyton did explicitly say that he's our District 1 representative, that his first choice was to keep Mr. Wiggum. And I agree. I thought, in my mind, everybody on the board needs to stay. And that's just why I was. You know, the discussion went so far that members of City Council wanted to kind of bring up the idea of the attendance record. Well, you know, that goes back to what I originally said. I mean, we're humans above all. We have families above all. So if you can't make it to a meeting, you know, you can't make it. And when we started, at least when I started, meetings for the Planning and Zoning was the second Thursday. And because of the growth of the city, because of the demand of the projects, we've had to go to the fourth Thursday on certain meetings. So that says a lot. But now, do we hold people responsible if they can't make that second Thursday, that fourth Thursday, the second meeting of the month? So I think that's improper to do that. And if city council was held to that same standard, maybe we should recall everybody on city council, because I'm sure everybody had some meeting or another that they were not able to attend. So those are kind of my comments. And my position is that I vehemently oppose city council reorganizing this board at this point or at any point in the future, unless a member chooses to resign or for whatever reason cannot serve on the board. So those are my comments, and the floor is open if any other member wants to respond, and I'll also leave the floor open if any member of the public wants to make a comment on it.
I have a question for staff. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was your department that was given the direction from council to develop some type of policy, procedure, as far as, and excuse the term, nutrition of board members. I was curious if staff has any insight on that particular process at this time, and if holdover might be included into whatever you're referring to it, policy, procedure, etc.
Mr. Hamilton, I believe you are correct. Currently, staff does not have a draft of plan or policy or procedure at this point. I think it would be a benefit long-term to discuss holdover specifically in that policy.
Has staff been queried by council as to the, and please correct me prior to my arrival, the quantity of absences of previous P&Z board members?
If I remember correctly, historically, when board member nominations were presented to City Council, and historically that was for the Planning and Zoning Board or the Zoning Board of Adjustment, part of the supplemental information that was provided was the attendance roster.
I also was at the meeting that the chair attended, the City Council meeting, excuse me. And as the chair indicated, council spoke about absences. If I recall state statute, the requirement is that the chair be notified of any absences. However, if I recall state statute, it did not indicate that the reason for the absence need to be indicated. It's my understanding that board members, council members were looking for possibly reasons for absences. Is that incorrect?
I'm unfamiliar with a state statute in regards to that. There is a city ordinance that describes how the board is to be governed, and I believe the exact language is unexcused absences. However, I don't think there's a definition for an unexcused absence. In my opinion, that would be similar to a no-show altogether, but I guess that's open to interpretation.
I was not aware of city ordinance. I have a copy of that as far as attendance for P&Z board members.
I can get you a hard copy, and it's online as well.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Chair.
Mrs. James?
Since it's being brought up, can staff go ahead and give us the definition again of the holdover capacity?
Yes, so what holdover does, it would allow an existing board member whose term expires to keep functioning at the same capacity as a board member if the city council did not either renominate that person to continue or nominate an alternate person to serve in that seat. So basically, until a decision is made, this holdover terminology would come into play, where the board member would continue to function until a final decision was made on that seat.
And staff, is that a new term that's being looked at in this plan that's being created?
It's not a new term. I don't know if it's specifically defined in the city's ordinances. However, it's been a legally proven, for lack of a better word, practice, where it has occurred elsewhere. It's been defensible, and it's really justifiable if you had a situation where a board member's term expired, to not have the board come to basically a halt. That would allow the board to continue to pursue business and function as normal until the final decision is made by the city council for members.
Thank you.
Any other members?
Chair.
Ms. Jackson.
My question is, you mentioned that there were applications for positions that were not vacant at the time. What is the process? Did you send out a notification? Did it come from planning and zoning that there was a potential vacancy? How did that process work? How did we entertain applications from potential interest if the actual vacancies wasn't up? And did we give the current people opportunity who is already serving in that capacity notification of what they need to do to be reconsidered? So I just would like to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, so I guess Mr. Wiggum is the only holdover member here that could, back up my story, I guess. But the three existing members that terms were expiring, I believe it was mentioned during the Planning and Zoning Board meeting that it was occurring relatively soon. I did follow up through email. I did the same with Mr. Wiggum and received basically his letter of interest to remain on the board. So, of course, if an existing board member provides that information and says, yes, we wish to continue, that information is provided to City Council. It's a generic board member application that's on our website, and I believe it's through the City Clerk's website specifically, but that's available 24/7. So if at any point in time someone wants to submit an application, they can do so. As far as the timing, I think it happened where 3 board member seats were potentially up, so I think people started applying.
So there's no process in place where you put out a notification that there's a vacancy. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, if vacancies were to potentially occur, or if terms were expiring, it's not unusual to just put out a legal notice and say that the potential for a seat opening up is occurring.
No, I'm not saying that it is. But I guess my question was, you say from this office you did not put out a notification that a potential opening was occurring. It didn't happen from the PNC.
It could have been a legal notice that went out. I'd have to go back and verify. And that, again, it's to cover the board itself. Not to say that the existing board members were unresponsive, they have been responsive, but it was brought up over a a series of meetings, and it wasn't an instant response of, yes, we definitely want to, and here's all the information you need. So just in case that they weren't interested, or ultimately it's up to the council on who sits as a planning and zoning board member. So if there's other applicants that provide information, then staff's going to provide that in the council agenda packet as well.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to follow up with a few things. This whole entire process needs to be re-examined, keeping the same members, and I'll tell you why. There were a couple applicants, as I indicated, that submitted a date in October, the same exact date that was date stamped. Of those 2 applicants, they submitted a letter, maybe 2 or 3 sentences, saying that they wanted to be a part of the board. The process was to apply. When I became a member, I sent in the application. I think I might have supplemented with the resume, but definitely at the minimum, you should have an application. That's what I would propose, number 1. Because it's good that you send a letter, but let me know a little bit about yourself. Was there give me a little bit of background on your professional career, maybe some education, civic experience. Not, I'm interested in being a part of the board because I want to see the city do good. I mean, don't we all? But I want to know a little bit more. Additionally, there was an applicant on there that had the audacity to not even live in the city and to put a business address. I mean, who does that? Also, there was an applicant, and let me tell you, guys, this is a conspiracy. I mean, I really want your attention on this. I mean, members, listen, this is a conspiracy. There was an applicant, oh gosh, I can't even remember his name, but he submitted both a letter to the city council expressing his intention, and he also submitted an application. But why is it that a person would misspell their own first name? Now you tell me where in the whole entire country will you misspell your own name? So the name that was on the application was spelled differently than the name that was on the letter. So I know exactly that that's a problem for me. And this is the kind of people that we want on our board. Also, I mean, look at how we had to hash out for over, almost 2 hours just a site plan application. If we're going to open up our doors for an applicant to be a part of the board, at least they should be able to pay close attention to detail and follow instructions by filling out an application and not a letter, or not letting somebody write a letter on your behalf just to satisfy the requirements. I want my name to be considered. And I have a problem with that. That's pretty much a slap in the face to us. I spend my weekends looking at this information, and I make sacrifices. And I would expect that the people that be on this board may not do the same exact thing, but at least come to the board with the mindset that you want to be diligent and do what you have to do, not just to be up behind a dais. I mean, but to kind of really put into the work that it takes to make our city better. And this whole entire process is bumming to me. I'm going to continue to speak out on it. I imagine that there's going to be some opposition. You know, when I'm hit with lemons, I make lemonade. That's just the way it is. So if they dislike it, they dislike it. But if it comes back before council, I'll again express my dissatisfaction with it, and I will certainly also send emails to the council members that I think this is a bad idea, because it's just a bad idea.
Sure.
Mr. Hamilton.
Staff, I was curious, will there be procedure to notify P&Z board members of their upcoming term expiration date? Or is that a procedure already in place and I may not be aware of it since I have not reached that point yet?
Yeah, I'd say that historically, staff has informed members prior to their expiration. It's information that's readily available. What we would need is, again, a letter of interest from the Planning and Zoning Board members saying that they do wish to serve another term. additionally, the application can be filled out. I personally think that the application for an existing board member may be redundant. However, if the council is considering one person versus the other, they should probably have similar information to compare and contrast. So I don't think there's a formal on-the-books procedure as far as notifying existing board members, but it's readily available information, and it's really just providing you with information that you do wish to continue as a member.
So I need to put my expiration date on my calendar so I don't forget, I guess.
We'll probably have a couple meetings before then, so.
Well, I guess I need to be submitting mine tonight because I'm set to be sitting on the other side over there. And
I didn't think I needed to remind you because I think.
Well, you know what?
Chair, were you notified?
Yes, actually, I was notified.
Okay.
I love my staff. You know, it just got lost in the mail, but I got it timely enough. But, you know, my thing is this. You know, I dislike when people come to the podium to say something that they could have said before. Now, this is unique because I didn't want to, it's not like I can call you and say, hey, Mr. Hamilton or Mr. Wiggum, you know, this came up before the city council, because that is particularly something that one of my members, hint, may make a motion tonight to send towards council some direction on what the planning and zoning board thought about the restructuring of the program. So I chose not to even go down that avenue because I wanted us to have a discussion and I wanted everybody to kind of know what was going on, because, you know, I was really caught by surprise, and I said that is a real disappointment that that's what the city council thinks of us. Thank you for your service. Now I want my own picks. But when you had your picks, when you had an opportunity to appoint from your district, you didn't even have an applicant. So now we got all applicants. Some of them I would call, what do they call them? Straw applicants. Somebody that's not really somebody. So somebody that just wants to, I don't know. This is just bothering to me. And another thing is, so if now we're in February and my term ends in April, if I don't send in the letter of intent, am I automatically held over or am I not? You know, that's what I mean. This whole thing needs to be reevaluated because there's so much ambiguity in what happens from this point on. And quite honestly, I am going to wait. I would like to see how the election turns out in March, and then, you know, I'll decide on whether or not I want to still be a member. You know, but it's my intentions to be a member. But, you know, if we have to do all of this foolishness, then, you know, really, is anybody benefiting? Probably the council members that want certain people on the board. And that's just where I'm at with it, and that's my opinion. Any other members?
Clear.
Mr. Colton.
I do understand your frustration, and before I get into my comments, it didn't get lost in the mail. That's on the footnote. I understand your frustrations, and the unfortunate, I really do understand how you're looking at it, to say the city council is now all of a sudden want to revamp, or they have some newfound persons to be on that they want to put in positions. The unfortunate thing is that they have, or they're in control of who or when, based on our end date, expiration date, entertain whomever they choose to. I do think it's a bad idea when you have 3 members and the possibility of starting over 3 members all of a sudden comes up, because it's a learning experience that when you sit on the board here, and to me it's a learning experience from when I first came on, you learn, and you don't know everything, so you have to get it from the other members. So it's a bad idea in that sense, where you have a whole new board trying to figure out what to do and how to do it and making the wrong decisions. The unfortunate thing is that they have that power or the control or will to do that if they do choose to. I do think we as board members who term is expiring should also be able to go and present ourselves in front of the city council and give our background as far as what we have done over the period of time that we've served. But I do understand the frustration that you feel, and unfortunately, I do see the other side where, yes, they're in control of making a final decision, be it good, bad, or indifferent. Thank you.
And I'll follow up just before you start. Hold on 1 second, Mr. Williams. You're right, Mr. Colton. It is their decision, but it was just their decision to appoint you and appoint me and appoint everybody else up here from District 1. So now, why undo what you've already started? Additionally, let me tell you how it actually played out at the meeting. When their names came up for selection, one of the members said, "Let's have a discussion. How are we going to rewrite the Planning and Zoning Board?" But also defining the ordinances is a condition or a clause that says no member may be removed without cause. Now, this is how ambiguous this is. So now that we know that any of the District 1 members can't be removed without cause, the first thing that comes into discussion is, okay, well, who's been absent that's not been excused? So how do we start down this road of finding out who is absent? Is it really about restructuring the board, or is it about kicking people off of the board? And again, at this point, we should have been involved in these discussions. Yes, they do have the ultimate say-so, but I would like to think that they're going to be considerate that we've just went through a whole year or more with no new members on the board. We have a solid team. We've just wrestled with the biggest redevelopment in the city.
I'm not disagreeing.
Well, I'm just saying, this is why I felt abandoned. This is why I felt neglected, because did they not even think about the fact that, okay, for one, the idea that they sent council back with is never going to work. Because just because we're in 2015 now, Mr. Colton, you, for instance,
2016.
You don't expire to 2016. So they can't get you off the board unless they have cause. So that's why it won't work. But what I'm saying to them is they shouldn't even be exploring this option anyways. Don't decide behind closed doors, or don't let a member decide that they're going to revamp city council planning and zoning board meeting until, or let a few people know, hey, you should perhaps apply. And then we don't find out until 3 members' terms is up that, okay, well, we already had some people's applications from 3 months ago. How do you accept applications for jobs that's not even advertised? Or jobs that's not even open? I'm just saying, it's a conspiracy. They created this animal, so we have to deal with it for now. And until there's a complete, comprehensive rewrite of this entire application process, term process, notification process, everything should remain as the same. And that's all I'm saying, because I already know that there's some monkey business going on here.
Let me
Mr. Colton.
comment on. I do agree with what you're saying. How it came up as far as, let me say instead of agree, I do understand your frustration. And what I am saying and looking at is, yes, as you said, it came up in the council. What can we put our hand on to say we're going to remove a certain person? And that's how the absentees came in. So it just caused they now are using that as a just cause to say this person, and they could use that maybe for me if I've missed 1 or 2 instances. Yes, they can. The unfortunate thing is, like I said, for them to do 2, 3, 4 people all at once, it disrupts the board and the knowledge that carries over into. I don't disagree, but understandably also they do have that control with the way that it's written, unless there's something totally change and rewrite. And if they rewrite something, they can rewrite and start from scratch all the way over. They still have that opportunity in rewriting the putting in process in place. I do understand, but just for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Colton. Mr. Wiggum.
I just have one encouragement comment. During the city council meeting about the St. Island project that we worked on so hard last year, a citizen came up and said and told the city council that we did a better job reviewing that project about St. Island than they did. And we did because we spent a lot of hours here, remember, working on that project. And I just want to let you know, we did our job. If they want some sloppy work, then let them put some sloppy people in. Thank you.
Any other members?
Sure.
Mr. Hamilton.
I'm hoping that staff would include in their, whatever they're developing, policy or procedure, and excuse the term, auto-renew clause, where if council does not act within a time period, that particular term automatically renews. And since we're talking about the experience or knowledge of present P&Z board members, I was curious if there are any educational workshops coming up in the future. Maybe might be able to let us know by next meeting.
Any other members choosing to comment?
Chair.
Mrs. James.
I have a question for staff. Are there any other city boards that are being reviewed for this new process, or is this just the P&Z board?
I believe that the discussion ensued at the council meeting, and that was due to the discussion of potential nominations of members or renominations of members. So I don't think any other board is currently considered in this discussion.
I have a problem with that, most definitely, because why are we just being looked at when the city has other boards? So if you're trying to revamp an entire process, that should go across the board for any volunteer city boards that we have, not just for P&Z. Also, can you provide, I'm going to ask for me, I don't know if any other board members would like to know, but the attendance record of the city council members for excused and unexcused absences since the beginning of their term. Can you provide me with that information?
Respectfully, the information is probably held by the city clerk's office. Also, I believe the meeting minutes of each meeting would indicate whether or not a member was present or absent.
Okay, so let me ask you this: when they directed, it might be a little different because you guys are staff. They could do the same thing. They can go back to the meeting minutes and look to see who's missed the meeting instead of requesting that information. Is that something specifically that they requested?
I believe that the attendance roster was provided, and there was discussion on whether or not the absences were excused or unexcused for planning and zoning board members. And the way that they're currently recorded, it's not designated as one or the other, either a board member is present or absent. So, I try to make the best effort at saying prior to the meeting that board member A or board member B provided notification that they will not be here tonight. However, it hasn't been logged and tracked in that manner. So that was the item that was discussed at the council meeting.
Okay, so if I wanted to obtain the information for the council members, I would have to go back through all of the meeting minutes.
Unless the city clerk's office has a master log, which I'm unsure of, that would be the...
So I need to get in contact with the clerk staff and not...
Well, there's a link on our website to all the meeting minutes, and right. I can shoot you an email with that link.
No, I have that link. I visit there quite frequently. So
yeah, so there should be a link for I think it's the agenda packets and meeting minutes from previous meetings. So I think it's all logged and it's information that's available on our website.
Okay, that might be good for the residents to look at, especially since we're coming up to an election. Thank you.
A part of that attendance policy that was cited in the ordinance I can kind of remember, and I just had Mr. Hamilton say something that refreshed my memory. I thought that at some point it said that if a member was absent, they had to notify the planning and zoning secretary as well as the chair or the chair. But now I'm looking at the ordinances and it doesn't say that. It said the city council may remove any member for cause. Any member of the board who fails to attend 2 out of 3 meetings without cause and without prior notification to the secretary of the board shall automatically forfeit his appointment to serve on the board, and the city council shall promptly fill such vacancy. So, I don't know, maybe I was mistaken, because I remember something in the language that said either notify the chair or notify the secretary, but maybe I'm wrong.
Sure.
Mr. Hamilton?
To the attorney, does this PNC have a secretary?
Sir, I don't know, but I can get that answer for you.
Well, I think this, if you, just the 1 or 2 paragraphs prior, it designates the planning and zoning administrator as the secretary.
Like I said, I was not aware of the ordinances. I was aware of the state statute. And you're reading from city ordinance. So I'm asking the attorney to let me know of P&Z, because their ordinance indicate that we may have an office that's vacant based upon your reading.
If I may, that's not my understanding. I believe that staff functions in the secretarial capacity or as secretary of the board.
That's why I'm asking the attorney to clarify, because we're talking about ordinance, law, etc. But thank you, staff.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none.
Chair.
Ms. James, you recognize.
Could the board make a motion for recommendations to be presented to the city council in reference to the plan that they have directed staff to submit to them?
Yes. The planning and zoning board can make almost any motion that they so choose to make.
The chair, I do have one motion that I would like to make as a recommendation for city council to consider in reviewing of the P&Z board.
Is that your motion?
That includes looking at all boards if they are going to revamp the process to include every city board that city residents sit on and not just the planning and zoning board.
Ms. James, respectfully, I will ask you to clarify.
Second.
Excuse me, I got the floor, Mr. Hamilton. I would ask you to clarify simply because you said to look at, because guess what? I'm looking at you right now. That's not substantive. I mean, if we're going to make a motion, make it about something that would really direct staff or direct council or actual position of the board, not to look at, because look at means looked at it. I mean, let's be for real here, because the clock is ticking on me. I think I have probably less than 2 months. So, I mean, if we're going to make a motion, my recommendation is to make something that actually gives a clear direction as to what you expect from city council or what you would like to get done instead of just look at. Because they aren't the ones that's looking at it. They've sent staff to come back and implement or propose a policy. So, you know, you're welcome to do what you will. But I just want you to have that on your mind.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion instead of using the terminology look at, state their position on revamping all boards, not just the planning and zoning board, in their review.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. James, second by Mr. Hamilton. Last time for any comments. If you would call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry. You have a comment, Mr.
Yes.
Colton?
Again, I understand the frustration, but I think this motion is overreaching when it comes to either, I don't know if there's a requirement that you're asking if the planning and zoning board is revamped and the city should look at revamping other boards. And if that's the case, to me, it's overreaching. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. Staff, if you would call the roll.
Arthur Hamilton,
Yes.
Kimberly Jackson,
Yes.
Brian Colton,
No.
Julius Wiggum,
Yes.
Renee James,
Yes.
Frederick McCoy,
Yes.
voting 5-1, motion approved.
I guess moving forward on item C, I think we've already hashed out board member terms, so the only thing we have remaining is project updates and upcoming projects, Mr. Gagnon.
Yeah, what staff will do is provide a revised list of projects for the next meeting. We may or may not meet on February 26th, depending on the projects coming through the staff review pipeline, but I'll be sure to notify the board if it is canceled.
Okay, and that would mean that the next possible meeting would then be March 12th. Just after the election. Interesting. Okay, any other comments before we adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second.